please send in your questions about anything that we might be able to address. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Adrian,
Good evening.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening, y'all. As they say down here in the South, 1,050 miles just south of here.
Yeah.
And I am a San Diego transplant, so you probably catch a little bit of that accent along the way. So if things get too awesome, well, you know where that came from.
Adrian, start off by, a little bit about yourself. How'd you get started in the innovation world? What, what got you started, and where has it brought you? And then we can get into some of the, the media topics. What set you off? What got you started?
All right. Kind of an easy way to sum this up is my childhood idol growing up was
there he is, Mr. Franklin. Yeah.
So being a famous inventor and diplomat and scientist, it was greatly motivational to me. Growing up, a lot of self-study in STEM, and got involved in technical things real early. So it was just my choosing to pursue my creative interests. I was one of those kids that was so distracted that no, I'd rather be daydreaming or actually working on something than attending. So scholastically, high school wasn't one of my better achievements, but I did graduate. Actually, afterwards went in the Navy and became a flight simulator specialist, got out. In the Navy, I met my wife, Amy, who we've been together 40 years now. And we got out, and we were both actually involved with some high-tech startups that were really leading edge science things with thin films, magnetics and optics and other high-tech areas. Ended up in a consumer electronics company in the 80s as an engineering manager. I progressed from assembler on up, and was being approached to develop and design things professionally. One of the last things I developed there actually was a car alarm system that was knocked off in 3 months by Korean Specialty Products, and it showed up a few more about a year later as another brand of car alarm system that'll go nameless. Point was, it was my first lesson in the importance of patenting. My wife and I actually started our company, A² Technology, so I have been self-employed as an artificer, that is professional inventor. And yes, I've actually coached and met over 2,000 inventors. I'd meet 4 to 5 a week, and over 10 years of running the Inventors Forum, that's over 500 weeks. And so over 2,000 inventors I've met with, talked to. For hundreds of them, I've actually helped them accomplish their dreams, make something demonstrable as a working model. And a few dozen of them I've actually helped get their business started as well. And then on my own things, I've after developing so many other things, my preferences are things that help mankind or the environment. So I've prided myself most on medical devices that I've created and I brought to market. So there's your start to where I am today.
How many patents you hold?
There's 18 issued. There's one I just got notice on. They got the filing fees on. It'll be published in December.
Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah. One of the things, Adrian, we find, and you and I have talked about this before, is that when the first questions, creators, they're not quite inventors yet, ask you about how they get started. They're with a lot of them that we, as that we deal with, they're kind of lost when the question they always ask, saying, I have this, I don't know where to begin. I have this thing, I don't know where to begin. And then, sometimes the holes they get fall into quite quickly.
Oh yeah. No, that's indeed, George. Again, after so many years of every Thursday, I donate for free. 1 hour to anybody who wants to come. We'll figure out where they are at with their idea, where they want to go with it, what might be possible. And I'm very objective with them. I'll start off with a questionnaire that helps me be objective and asking 10 questions and grading it accordingly. and but also it lets me learn about them and get a feeling of how much do they really want to commit to the whole project. But there are some very, very common questions that really are almost often asked. If first one off the bat is, what do I think of their idea? And I'm honored they'd ask me, but my answer is, well, I'm an N of one, meaning, you know, I have my value of an answer here is just of 1 point, and what should be about 100. But I'd rather than go through, again, the questionnaire of 10 things to go over to see how much homework they've already done to determine if it's worth developing or not. So it's a right off the bat, the first hour we meet, I do have a formula for this to meet with them, identify their past and their preferences and manners of communicating and so on, and then get a judgment call as to whether they were looking to do something they're going to license, or is this a long haul business plan they're trying to create. So a lot of questions are asked in that first hour and are addressed, and they all leave with the knowledge that they got an honest opinion by somebody that has seen over 300 of these sort of visions come true and knows quite well what mistakes can be made.
Does the conversation get into money, funds?
Oh yeah, that's all probably the second or third question. After we find out what their own resources are and they admit it, we'll find out if they've got 2 nickels to rub together, or, you know, they're sitting on a grand inheritance here and they're really, you know, to go for the whole 9 yards right off the bat. It's everybody's different, a little different level. So absolutely, we address what assets they have, which ones are liquidable, which ones are they willing to dive into. And for many, though, it does become the issue that they don't have any resources, they don't have the connections, they are still earning to make a living, and so anything outside of those parameters is just undoable, and that's really, really frustrating for them. So that's one of the reasons I addressed the new avenues that I have.
I have a question for Adrian.
Yeah, Alexa.
When someone comes and sits down with you, at what point do you talk to them about starting to consider funding? Is it before the prototype stage? Is it after the intellectual property is filed for? Can you give us a sense for when an independent inventor should start to think about, okay, how might, unless that person has, you know, inherited wealth, if they have to go and get you know, an SBIR fund or something, a grant or something like that, at what part of the process do you start to encourage them to think about that?
Right. Well, I think the beginning, again, once they see the laundry list, the new product development plan I wrote is 5 steps, but it's 42 tasks. A lot of them are concurrent. And so we review that. And when you review that, you start understanding some of these tasks are either going to cost money or a time commitment. And therefore, it almost becomes obvious very early on, well, this is outside of my level of resources. Whether people are going to dive into their credit cards, if they're going to take loans out on their homes, their friends and family. There are other easy entry ways people do and have traditionally found money. Now, though, we're opening up a whole new portal with a crowdfunding way of bringing funds to the equation early on, very, very early on, at first conception, so that people can do the IP search and file things and get drawings and models made.
Yeah, I sort of, the title of the event is SBIR grants, but I would love it if, I know George would too, if we talked about both options, the grants and this new crowdfunding option that Adrian has actually met with the founder of GoFundMe and put together. I'll let you speak to it, Adrian, but put together an option for us independent inventors to raise some early stage capital for paying for intellectual property, prototype, those kinds of things that can really add up. So I guess love to hear about both options.
All right, well, the one thing after another. The very first meeting is really trying to determine if this idea has the merit to move forwards or not. Once we identify that there are reasons it should move forward, that gives them the impetus to, in fact, spend some more time and effort and maybe a dollar or two. Again, it's the outcome of having a new matrix test done that we do supply all of the clubs that make a small donation to the club. It comes with that new product development plan. And this is an actual Excel spreadsheet that allows you to create your project plan in 2 stages. The first half is how you will physically create it. And the second half is how you will be presenting it. And when you line these things up, it becomes a full-on project plan where you can identify time, the players, and all these sort of things. So as a starting point for somebody who's never gone down this, it's a great way to go from the first steps of capturing the idea, web searching it, doing the patent search, doing this evaluation matrix, because in here there's things you may not have considered. For example, let's talk about this evaluation matrix, because it's a very standard tool. Most people get through this kind of appreciate it. So you're going to weigh these things: the estimated profitability, the technical complexity, the industry size, the number of competitors, the number of related patents. How unique is your IP? How many regulatory agencies are concerned? How likely is that you're going to pass those? The development costs and the estimated sales first year. These are just high-level questions that we go into to figure out and score to see if this is worth considering or not. And again, it lets me be objective, because as a recovering engineer, I fall in love with people's ideas and I get all excited about it before I realize, gee, really, who would buy one of those? You know, there's just some fundamental things that a lot of times we fall in love with the idea instead of being objective. So with those things said, we sit down in that first meeting and have that discussion, the SWOT analysis. And I asked them, are they thinking of making this a thing they're going to license? And hopefully the check shows up. Are they willing to make it a startup? And oftentimes than not, they think the license agreement is the way to go until they learn a few more of the complexities that are involved. And for the same amount of efforts, what can be achieved and the greater profit margins they'll receive in actually starting the business. So to that end, yes, I did. With the startup out here, and I say that because I did run the San Diego Inventors Forum for 13 years. So this is where I actually had the most experience in working with inventors, and my own product development business is still there in San Diego. You can look it up on CaliforniaProductDevelopers.com. So after all those years in meeting people and with my own experiences as well, the need to raise funds was absolutely necessary. To get from one point to another, to even get to a point where you've got something you can demonstrate and talk about. That takes some money, even if it's just a few hundred or thousand. The whole field changed so much since I've been involved. Way back in the earlier days, we had to consider funding for hard tooling to make parts, and that was tens of thousands. Your marketing methods were very crude. And patent laws were changed. So things have changed now. The patent laws have changed. We'll talk about that. The way to bring things to market, though, with 3D printing absolutely revolutionized it. Things that would take you tens of thousands cost hundreds now. And instead of months, a couple of weeks. So that's revolutionized the way to create a demonstrable thing. But the funding issue, that still remained a challenge. So you had the usual answers. Like we talked about, and then people would, for bigger projects, often go to the angels groups, and angels groups are national. There's in San Diego, we had the Tech Coast Angels. It's actually a syndicate of groups. They're actually clubs of people who are accredited, and they've got the monies that they can invest. These groups often form little cliques because they have verticals. They all had some experience in some profession or another, and they follow those startups that are geared towards those areas. So those angel groups would usually fund between startup rounds of a few tens of thousands up to about 750,000. Then what happened was called the Valley of Death, which meant it was very hard to find funds between the 750,000 and about 2 million and up, which is where VC firms like to step in. VC firms are typically not giving seed capital. They're looking for great returns on investment with their investments. And so it's really predicated on you having an ongoing operation that needs to expand. And when you show that business plan, the venture capitalists are much more likely to, again, work in their own vertical and support you. So those used to be the old entry point ways to go for funding. I've ventured through all of them myself and bootstrapped and with angel investors and convertible note holders, a much more serious and deadly form of investing, as I found out. So what's happened now after the pandemic, and we're learning so much more is done now online, crowdfunding has bloomed and flourished, and there's many variations of it now. The crowdfunding can be at the earliest levels, like we have discovered GoFundMe will do and Indiegogo. A step up is once you have something demonstrable and you want to make first production lines. Kickstarter has become very effective at taking things and making it to where it's first sales items, or Kickstarter will fund campaigns that are selling first to sale items. And later, the next stage is once you do have something and you have vetted it and there is some traction, you might want to consider, well, it is going to get licensed then because you can prove it's vetted, people want it and will buy it. Or you might decide, yeah, I really want to get a lot higher profit margin and invest in starting your own business. And with enough work and preparation, 7A loans and others from the SBA are wonderful ways to get launched and not give up any more equity. The problem with getting investors in is they all take a little bit of your company, and before long, your 65% ownership got split in half, and then that got split in half, and then that got split in half, and at the end of it, well, you know, you've given up a whole lot of your company to get that financing. So traditional loans does have quite a benefit. There's other ways to raise the money with factoring or artificial royalties, it's called. There's some very creative other funding methods, but traditional loans are very strong, very attractive. And so, saying such, I do speak regularly. Public radio broadcast played something on Memorial Day, and the marketing lady from our local small business administration heard it and called me, and it was so fun because she said, I love what you're doing. And I had to ask her, are you sure you want to just throw in one more love there or what? So what she was so enthused at was that I was in fact promoting grassroots entrepreneurism, that we want to see everyday Americans get out from under that rock and get inspired to in fact create something they've been thinking about, or any of these baby boomers that are retired, you know, now's the time. Let's see businesses get started. Let's bring manufacturing back to everyday America, every little city.
Adrian, in that line that you just drew for us, where does the more questions come up related to what type of patent you might have, related to raising the funds? Very early on, because I know we've done it, that, okay, you raise some funds for a prototype. Now you might need a short run to prove the concept for that. At what point, if as you find people that parallel going through the patent process and trying to do this, or do they wait to get the patent and then start through the process?
No, you don't wait to get a patent. That'll take years and years and years. You'll be sitting there doing nothing, going nowhere. It's right. Again, the very first hour, the fifth question I ask is, what's the number of patents? Oftentimes the project stops right here because they don't know. I get on the web while they're right there in front of me, and I'll find 3 or 4 that are almost exactly like what they talked about. So it was a lack of their homework to find out that, you know, don't reinvent the wheel here, or look at what has been patented. How can you design or patent around it becomes the question. So what is the necessity of a patent? Whether it is out there is something that I'm adamant about discovering right up front. Matter of fact, before I'll take anything further, it's the very first question is, what patents out there? Because they might not even been marketed yet. The next question is, how have they been marketed? Which, well, then they are in fact out there. But even before that, you'll find things sometimes are patented, and it was done by somebody who doesn't have a marketing team, doesn't have a business, doesn't have a factory. They're looking for funds themselves, but they spent the money and got it patented, which means it's a danger. If you go out and produce something, they could come back and say they invented it first. However, that's lost a lot of its weight nowadays because the infringement laws, injunctive relief, if you're actually producing a whole lot of them and they haven't gone into production, the patent office will obviously turn around and say, well, we prefer you, even though you infringed, because you're doing more benefit to society. And that's a whole nother odd wrinkle to what have changed in patent laws that probably isn't part of this discussion today, but
Well, it's certainly, I think everybody just sat up in their chairs and said, what was that you just said?
Hmm.
So, well, let's touch on that for a minute, because that goes back to if I'm an angel investor or if I'm Kickstarter, one of those is going to ask that question saying, how is your idea protected? I'm about to, invest in you and your idea. So what kind of protection do we have going forward? And that question, I would think, gets more intense as you would take it up the ladder to VCs and things like that. I mean, that's, so, I'd like everybody to get that kind of balance, because with a lot of creators, me being one of them a long time ago, is that creators get the tunnel vision of want to see their product do well. They don't pay attention to the money sometimes, where they get it, how they get it, and what they have to account for sometimes to others about that money.
let's share a definition that puts it all in the exact right order. Product development, what an inventor does. Product development is bringing to the marketplace. All right, that doesn't mean you drew it up and got a patent and stuck it on a wall. Product development, commercialization, is bringing to the marketplace a customer accepted item. Now that means that it's been pre-researched before it's been launched and it's known to be accepted. So bringing to the market a customer accepted item from initial concept through design and into manufacturing on a predetermined cost, budget, and schedule. And by putting these things out of place and out of order, many inventors waste, I've seen, up to $350,000 in finding that their idea isn't marketable. It doesn't have desired features and things and so on. And they've gotten that big container over here from China, can't sell them at a swap meet for what they paid to have them made. So there's a right way and a wrong way to approach this. So this first step of determining a few of these things and finding out there's homework to be done, the number of patents and how close they are to yours is very important. Right after that, if they've determined that this isn't on the market, there are no patents on it, you do this evaluation and it seems like, it looks reasonable that it could be developed within your own resources or close to you. It's actually really important then to go ahead and be first to file, again, because of the patent law changes. You have to be first to file so you can actually defend it saying I did file it, unless somebody has a time machine, they can't go back. But the steps moving forwards right after this first discovery are where you're going to be talking about your idea to other people and getting opinions and help and other things. And you have to have that protection of the IP having been at least filed. May not be in its final form, but it's something that you do have a date stamp on as a way of proving you've secured the IP. Later on, as you talk to people, yes, the investors, especially on higher tech things. Again, my background is from tchotchkes and simple things that are, 10,000 to create, up to things that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars I had to raise to create a first working model. And for those sort of projects, yes, the IP had to be assigned to the business and the investors knew that and they invested in the company, which means they owned a percentage of that patent right as they first wrote their very first check. So it's a balance of equation of what investors are looking to have their investments secured in some fashion. If this thing whole goes south, if they're preferred investors, the assets are liquidated, the patents are sold, and they can at least recover, hopefully, some of their investment money from that. So it's a very essential form of protection for an investor to see there are patents on the technology that they're investing in.
Lexa, from I don't know if we have a question. I thought I saw something come up in the chat. Adrian, take us back to from 15 years ago with crowdfunding, and what are the kind of special rules that
Yeah.
there's still rules for those. And I know you've researched them because as we've developed the certified inventor organizations now, you know, if not the second question, the first question always comes up to funding, always comes up to funding, but there's still, right, there's still steps you have to take to go through that. There's parameters that you have to meet to do that.
For the to go crowdfunding, a good crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, the very first one was Kickstarter, and originally on they did actually promote just concepts, ideas before production. Unfortunately, too many investors were putting money in, it didn't come back, they didn't get to market, and they were getting a lot of hits and bad reviews because of that. And so they decided to differentiate between projects that are just concepts, like people want to write songs or do music or create a play, and others that are actually in production, ready to move forwards. And that differentiation is was the first part. The requirements are both on the presentation and on the marketing effect for it. I was actually delighted here. The GoFundMe people did supply us a best practice guide. It's in color. All the club leaders have a copy. I'm sure they'll be happy to supply you one. The best practices guide is great that it outlines what is important. And I'll just read them off. I won't read all the words about it, but the main thing is telling the story that's unique story that's easy to skim. Again, this new product development plan, it talks about creating the product and also the presentation. When it comes time to coaching for presentation, the very, very first thing to get across to people is the chemistry to do it, and the process is because of the way the brain works or doesn't work, and the attention span or lack of it. What I'm getting at is the first thing in any presentation is hit the heartstrings. You have to go from the heart to the mind to the wallet, are the 3 steps. You have to get them emotionally involved because we only have a few emotions. We identify with things, we're empathic. And when you say, hey, I have a problem doing this, if people can identify with it right there, you got them. If they don't, you don't. So the very first thing is expressing the pain. And they concur here at GoFundMe that it's the ability to express the story. They have the details in this guide about how to explain what the funds are for and how to get the story out there so people do feel it. They expect you to have language that makes it clear and bold. They explain how a team might work and having different ways, having different people approach you. The setups, the imagery, the videos, any good crowdfunding fan campaign requires a really powerful video. It is an infomercial. Again, you're down to that 1 to 2 minutes. Hey, I can't cook an egg without a magic pan. Boom, here's my magic pan. Now there's everybody's happy. The kids are smiling, the flowers are blooming. So there is a very simple formula to this for your videos to come across and show the pain, show the solution, show people enjoying it and have the testimonies in it. That's a huge component to all of these crowdfunding campaigns. Second is that script. Right now, we're just going through that with one of our local inventors who, gosh, she spent a decade getting ripped up by the invention submission companies, but she was persistent. We finally met within weeks. We had a really great sales sheet created for her, created a 1-minute video, put it out and got some response saying, we're interested, show us something a little more visual and we'll take it to the next step. And that's exactly what happens with the power of video and the confidence of actually speaking your pitch correctly and clearly and knowing the whole industry. So getting the expertise in the industry, having a great video that shows you've got a solution to a problem people can identify with, and are the first 2 parts of it. The background, they go through this on the guide as well, is the engagement and what they do, sharing, amplification, and promotion practices. So not only is the content important, it's how you're going to get it out there. And to that end, having your own website created already is important. Having that video on YouTube is important because of the way the Google engines link everything together. And then having a Facebook page, have a crowd that's all primed and prepped and ready to pull the trigger once you're saying that the campaign has started. What this does is get everything geared up. So when you finally hit the start button, the information links, the website's link, there's a rush to do some charitable donation things. The metrics engines pick that up and they promote it faster. And the faster you get promoted, the better a chance that something's going to go viral. So there's absolutely a success formula to crowdfunding. I'm delighted the GoFundMe people shared it with us in their best practices guide. We're happy to share it with all y'all. I've learned that's the plural of y'all. It's all y'alls.
Adrian, if someone wanted to get started with the special program that you helped to sort of design, the GoFundMe people, what do they do first? What's the first step? And how is it different than other crowdfunding options that maybe an independent inventor could take advantage of?
Well, for one thing, I did talk to Andy Ballister, who is the co-founder of GoFundMe. And when I told him he was doing, he actually got really excited. They are excited to see that they might be playing a part in what could become a national campaign and movement to enhance entrepreneurism. So that wave of excitement is a good thing for us inventors to ride and be a part of. The differentiation again with Kickstarter is they have matured quite a bit to where they're really only now looking for the projects that are going and moving. And unfortunately, it's also become such a popular well for startups that it's getting rated every day by people that are looking at the companies that are really susceptible, that are putting themselves out there and that don't have funds, that have a great idea, and they're just ripe for the pickings. So the benefit with the GoFundMe group is that these are ideas that are just concepts. They really still need to bloom a little bit before you see how beautiful they might be. And that's a lot earlier step, which is where everybody who's just starting with an idea really is, unless they already have tinkered in the garage and made it work and are much further along. But for the most part, that little bit of difference will pay for either the search or provisional filing, getting some drawings made so associate can be created, all sorts of the lesser expense tasks that need to be done can be accomplished. Indiegogo has a similar campaign though. I must do that shout out. And the difference is GoFundMe, no matter what you raise at the end of the campaign, that goes to your bank account. Other fundraisers like Kickstarter, you set a limit, and if you don't hit the limit, sorry, Charlie, you didn't hit your limit, and you don't get any of those funds. So, no, the question is, do you have to supply a product to all your donators? No, that's up to you to create the levels of involvement of which people can donate and what perks they can get back, whether it's from a thanks to a card, to a picture of you, to an invitation, to, as you do donate more, there are often times that you can get a discount or promotional item. So that is all based on the campaign and how you design the campaign.
So would it be fair to say that this GoFundMe program for inventors, independent inventors, is just sort of like a step before what you would do with a Kickstarter or Indiegogo?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Andy even pointed that out, going, wow, this is perfect, because we don't want to be in that Kickstarter world where they're trying to raise $750,000. No, this is a perfect size for people who are trying to look for really between 5 and 50 is what we had earmarked, saying that's really where we're going to think is a sweet spot for most inventors, that they can't get those kind of funds that really carry them through the most essential points where they finally at that inflection point where they got something demonstrable.
And I'm going to ask maybe it's a silly question, but what's in it for the people who invest? I mean, I guess it's up to the inventor to create those levels, as you just said, but are they just like the idea and want to be part of it, or
Often,
do they? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, oftentimes, absolutely. They like to be charitable. And that's the whole point of making the campaign a heartstrung, heartfelt thing. Because if they have compassion, they're going to go, oh my God, everybody out there who's a senior needs one of these tools.
Okay.
I'm relating actually the inventor I'm working with right now. She's invented a jar opener thing. And it's like, yeah, they finally tuned in the campaign. Who's this hitting? It's really hitting the heartstrings. It's really showing the everyday American has this problem. There is a solution. And then she laundry listed, this is the kind of money I'm looking to get to this, where I have my working model, where I have my first 10, well, I'm going to have my first 100, my first 1,000. At what stage can you get an early model? What stage can you so yeah, she does spell it all out. And the earlier levels on, you're getting tons of gratitude, maybe a thanks, maybe a gift thing. It is depending on, how many tchotchkes did you buy in consider
Do you have
important.
a direct link I can put in the chat of where they would go on GoFundMe? Is it GoFundMe.com/ whatever the name of the program is?
We forwarded out, I forwarded out last week, the link to all the club leaders,
Okay.
the GoFundMe practices guide. Check your email, Lexa and George. And
Okay, and I'll get it out to everybody on the call then.
all right, cool. Because if it doesn't surf it, let me know. I'll just absolutely forward it right out back to you. You betcha.
Okay, all right.
Adrian, go ahead, Lex, you got another question?
No, I mean, did you want to talk a little more about GoFundMe? Because I know people are really excited about talking about these grants, this grant money
Yeah.
available too.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, Adrian, and you talked about the emotion side of it and people, you know, you have to get other people excited about your product if you want them to get it, you know, to help you get forward. Do you find that some people might, when they get to that point of self-promotion, putting themselves out there, that they aren't maybe the best at it and a little fear kicks in so that they go, gee, can somebody else do this for me? Because I can't. Privately, they might be able to do it for you. But when the thought of, okay, flip the camera on and do a video, they just don't come across well. It's not because that's just the way it is. What happens then?
Yeah, no, it's not a little fear. It's quite often the most major fear. There's ways to get around it. Practice in front of a camera, in front of a mirror, actually in front of a friend or two, and just have them write critiques and put it in a basket without names so you don't know who wrote them. Read them, watch the video you just made of yourself so you can realize it is uncomfortable, especially if you're not extremely extroverted person, forcing yourself to get out there and say something. I've known people actually took Toastmasters courses and other things just to improve their ability to open up and speak in public. It can be hair raising. On the other hand, once you've done it a few times, it becomes old hat, and all of a sudden you enjoy standing in front of the crowds and hamming it up. But it starts with the better prepared you are and the more of an expert you are, the more confidence you'll have to stand there and speak succinctly about what it is you have to talk about. And once people realize you are in the expert of the room or equal to them in their expertise, things flow much easier and much faster. However, there are people that either have dialects or speech impediments, or whatever issues and reasons, they just cannot present. And yes, indeed, that is best, in fact, that they do find a hired gun, somebody they will take up the reins and present for them. I'm always hesitant to ever suggest that unless I can tell it's really we're faced with a handicap we're not going to overcome, because the original inventor will be the cheerleader and have the most passion about it than anybody else, most likely, that you can hire. There are some pro people, believe me, we know the people out there that would love to take some big bucks from your pocket, but man, when they shine, the world goes, oh my gosh. So there are some amazing talents out there, but you can quickly learn to be the master of your own domain, an expert in your own product line, and show the excitement and express the points that really hit people in the right spots in the right order.
Yeah. Lex, go ahead. You had a question, Lex, about the next that we had. I think we had a question about Kickstarter and WeFunder, was it?
Bob had asked this, do you have to have a supply product? I think Adrian already answered that. I don't know what high fives is. Bob, do you want to unmute and tell me what you meant by that? High fives, question mark?
Yeah, I was just kidding around. I mean, high fives.
Oh, what do you get? High fives, got it.
Yeah, do we have to stand on a ladder? The high five, is that valuable?
Okay, all right.
I was kidding around.
Oh, okay, I got you. I thought it was another platform that I hadn't heard of. No. And then you asked, what about equity crowdfunding such as WeFunder? Compare and contrast WeFunder against Kickstarter.
Yeah, there's two different funding methodologies out there. One is Kickstarter and Indiegogo, where you have to create the product and actually ship it out to the person that donated. And WeFunder is equity, where they actually own a piece of you. So there's two different ways of doing this. And I've been thinking about Kickstarter, but it would be a real pain for me because I'm alone. And it would be, if you got thousands and thousands of folks that want your gadget or your widget, you got to pack those up. You got to ship them out. You have to be like a mini company until that all gets delivered and people are happy, you know, because they're going to get stuff in the mail. Oh, it was never delivered. It can be a real pain too, you know, so.
Yep. So Adrian, did you want to add anything about WeFunder versus GoFundMe?
Yeah, well, again, equity is somebody taking a piece of your business, and that's that can add up, and they're always going to be getting that the check, the dividends check, depending on how you do all of that. The Kickstarter campaign is more suited to people that are actually in production. You're right. You will have to have ways to satisfy those orders. But the GoFundMe is not that same level. It's, again, taking a concept and turning it into something real. So it's a pre-Kickstarter level for financing projects and getting them to take off.
Is it possible that somebody can steal your idea from GoFundMe and just take it, run with it?
Well, we've got a few. We only have a few famous examples of that, as a matter of fact. And you're going to be seeing me speak actually next to the poster boy for that whole scenario here on Wednesday. When I was a founder of USI, we met Josh Malone, who in fact had been ripped off by Telebrands, a huge SC on TV company that in fact saw his campaign on Kickstarter. Josh's campaign took off and exploded. It was far more successful than they thought, which is the red flag trigger, whatever you want to call it, that these companies looking to rip you off are looking for. And in fact, yeah, they came out with a copy of his product. It seemed like in days. I think they took one and painted it blue, and they called it Balloon Bonanza or something. And that's when the whole fight started. So yes, absolutely. If you're not prepared to if you're not already in production, be careful of what you're promoting on Kickstarter, because yes, in fact, somebody can get something in production with a facility much larger than yours, take it there, and without injunctive relief, you don't have treble damages anymore. Treble damages meant, well, if you could prove somebody infringed on your idea, you'd be able to put them in a case. If you won the damages, it was 3 times what you lost, and that's why attorneys would pay for it on a contingency fee. All that dried up. With the Mayo ruling, a corporation decided they didn't like to be challenged that hard, and in fact changed the ruling, and now it's called efficient infringement in huge boardrooms. And it is in fact a practice where in a boardroom, when they see a competitor's coming on the market, if they know that's a little inventor that doesn't have the backing and support, that they can use one of these new patent law procedures like a PTAB, challenge their patent, invalidate their patent, all sorts of things they can do now to challenge an inventor that an inventor doesn't have the legs to stand on, doesn't have the $500,000 to defend himself. He can't get an attorney to defend him because there's no contingency fees, even if he wins. It's a lose-lose case. So for many inventors, the patent becomes a liability. And that is what the discussion's about Wednesday. Hope you tune in the SBIR event when Josh Malone, Randy Landrenew, who is the co-founder of US Inventor with myself, will be speaking on this subject. 12:45 Wednesday.
Is it possible to use a superb trademark, branding, and other avenues to strengthen your position in the marketplace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Having an IP portfolio does not mean just a patent. Absolutely. It's nowadays, matter of fact, the suggestion is a number of patents, layered patents. And yes, the trademarks, once you know that the brand is something that can be recognized or identified, you know, focus groups on branding is important too. But yes, by building all the other IP behind it is certainly a strong defense method, especially again on the higher technology projects and products that are worth millions of dollars and can be contested for millions of dollars later on. These things are really important. Now, other things, they're taking a market and they're hatched with far less IP and sometimes none at all nowadays. There's a huge trend of people that are going, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to keep this a trade secret and just manufacture it and just do it the old fashioned way, which is get to market as fast as you can, make as money as fast as you can, and get out of the market as fast as you can. So there are different strategies for different markets, depending how commercial the consumer or consumer related the product is.
And going to a, let's say now a certified inventor organization, we would have the contacts to help people along on all these different avenues. You know, I wanted to touch on that. Lex is going to put up the Inspire event for everyone to see, which Warren Tuttle, Lexa, Adrian, Steve Lyons, Carmine, a lot of people put a lot of time into the
I don't
effort
have
this
an
week.
answer for
That was going to be a wealth of information over 3 days, many different topics, about 50 or 60 different speakers talking on a lot of the things that we all deal with one time or another in our journey from that idea on a piece of paper to getting awarded a United States patent and everything that goes in before that, and a lot of things that happen afterwards with that. So, Lexa, can we bring everybody back on, and then can we
Yeah.
get?
Well, we didn't have, I mean, we haven't yet spoken to Adrian about SBIR. So I think
Okay.
maybe
Yeah.
we can do that. I think the code is England. I just put the link to the UIA conference, the virtual conference that starts on Wednesday that Adrian just spoke about. And we sent out an email through Meetup about a coupon that everybody on this call and everybody
Okay,
who are
good.
Invent New England can use. So I'm gonna double check that I have that coupon right, but I think it is.
I talked so much about the GoFundMe thing. I didn't talk anything yet about the SBA connections that we
Well,
made, because
Let's give it some time. We got everybody still here. Nobody's
all right.
dropped off the edge of the cliff yet, Adrian. So let's get right into it. Lexa, you can take this one with the SBIR.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think they're basically Adrian has worked with the SBA and SBIR to sort of, it feels like it's one of these amorphous things, working with the government and trying to get funding. And I mean, if someone like me who has a product, I have no idea where to start. So Adrian sort of navigated that and figured out sort of a step-by-step what you need to do. So correct me if I'm wrong, Adrian, but it sounds like there's tons of free money out there. Grants you don't have to pay back. They're not like loans. And there's money out there for people like us who want to commercialize our products. And I'll let you speak to that option for funding.
Okay, there are a couple of different things here in play because of the pandemic and what happened with everybody losing with so many jobs, companies. There has been the stimulus packages. There's been monies going into the systems and the states. So let's start at the state level. Our state here in South Carolina came out with an incentive program to, in fact, inspire entrepreneurs in the way of grants and funds, and disseminating that. They had what's called a new. Most of the states have in what's their economic development departments. The city here, same thing. With the businesses closing, revenues dropping, they wanted to re-energize the economy, and the business economic development manager was very quick to agree to our whole vision, because his saying is, the most sustainable way to increase the economy and grow jobs is by helping support inventors and entrepreneurs that are grassroots building these things. So we have state level interest, and there are grants. The city actually has involved itself in creating grants. Our local college has startup programs that offer grants as well. And since we're a nonprofit and a 501, the state and the city caters to us nonprofits. There's another differentiation between us and some other types of groups out there, is they do like to affiliate with us, groups that are above board transparent. So those are some of the interesting levels we found funding. It was actually going to be a bit complicated from the state, so we didn't apply this year because it is a lot of paperwork. But we did apply for a city grant and actually was awarded that. And we're also approaching a number of our sponsors here in town that share in the vision and can benefit it themselves because they're service providers of sorts, whether it's 3D printing company, manufacturing companies, IP protection companies, financing companies, the people that, all these different types, if there's a business, they like supporting a nonprofit. And again, our vision of helping motivate, educate, and network inventors to become successful entrepreneurs. The SBA, when I met with her, she was very excited, like I said, and we signed with them what's called Strategic Alliance Memorandum. They actually have a couple of different levels. They would like to, at a state level, create an innovation hub, and the innovation hubs then can dispense funds to other groups they called spokes. And so in every state would have a hub and then spokes, and these spokes can further bring grants and other monies down the line. The SBA does have access to grants. They do like to channel the SBIR stuff. We'll talk about that, what that means in just a minute. The Strategic Alliance Memorandum, I'm hoping all of our clubs out there actually get this involved in finding their local admin person in their county. The Alliance Memorandum, what it does is the Small Business Administration will then provide us with all their updated information about their programs and services. They'll make available upon request information regarding the SBA's resource partners, not limited to the Small Business Development Centers, SCORE, the Women's Business Centers, collectively SBA's resource partners. There's pamphlets, there's publications, they'll advise us on things. They'll show up at our events, they'll show up at our workshops, conferences, and seminars. They'll invite our members and clients to attend local SBA sponsored events. They'll provide text hyperlinks for our website. So in other words, SBA will be advertising that our group is having meetings, which for all the group owners, by the way, this is a great way for you to bring in more interest and recognition to your club. They'll provide information on all the programs and services they're doing, their point of contact. So they're just delighted to come in and play a part in helping people get their business loans and other links to government services. The loans are SBA 7A, and there's another standard form. And they'll help you build up your credit score and create that business plan. Either you buy Business Plan Pro, which I've seen plenty of people use as their way to get an SBA loan, because that's small. Business Plan Pro has 500 already created business plans. You just kind of customize the one suited closest to you. I see people use that for their SBA applications. Anyway, they'll help you get your credit scores up. They teach you a few ways and tricks to do that, how to get those applications made with the right resume and all of that, and then connect you to the local funding sources that do offer SBA loans. And we've in fact connected with Optimus Bank and another one here in town that are just happy as anything to be helping, looking at creating loans for inventors.
I have a follow-up to that, but I want to ask Shirley's question. Shirley asked, do you have a rule of thumb as to what is the percentage of funding you receive from your own network versus funding you receive through people through crowdfunding? Is there any sort of kind of guidelines you can offer?
No, so many projects are so different, and depending on the little circle that's actually grown around the project as I've been developing it, my lowest hanging fruit is most oftentimes my own connections. And so they're not always angels, they're Uber angels or friends or people that are accredited investors that, with my familiarity of doing this, and I have a track record. So so I don't have, it's usually with me, a higher percentage are coming from my own network, but other people have no networks. They haven't even ever played golf. They've never been social. They don't have any connections, and they have to resort entirely to crowdfunding, and they still succeed. People like Josh, they weren't social animals that had big followings or anything, yet they still blew it out of the water. And I've met many other people. The guy who created the pancake machine, Miguel, his kids wanted to make a pancake machine. He made it out of Lego blocks and a ketchup bottle, and it blew up. And he was showing Prince Harry and all these things. Anyways, it doesn't take a network. It can be done individually, and you shouldn't be that scared about it, really, especially if you can speak succinctly, talk about the pain, the problem, and shine your passion and your truthfulness out. People, they'll dig it. There's my California explanation coming back at you.
Bob asks, can you get a grant or a loan with only a business plan and a prototype?
Absolutely.
There we go. How does someone get started? Like, how does an independent inventor up in Massachusetts or down in South Carolina where you are, or out in California, what if that person's, maybe we'll talk about loans in a second, but is interested in a grant?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a woman-owned business, or maybe it's just an inventor. You know, what's the best way for, because writing grants is so tough. It's like a science in and of itself. How do you get help with that?
Yeah, I'm going to take one step back because the question I just answered so quickly. There are some predicates for that.
All right.
Just the business plan and a working model can work, but you better have that IP secured, because if you're going out there and showing people that business plan and a working model and you haven't secured the IP, in the Navy, we used to say loose lips sink ships. And oh my gosh, if you just went out there and just blabbed the whole picture and gave the whole thing away, you might as just as well, hand it to them going, let me know how it turns out, because that's why you get your IP protected. Okay. So, but then since that was one of your first things, see, the IP, if you did it yourself, it's a couple $100 and you actually have a provisional patent that's good for a year to say, I've got this thing patent pending. Then you can go out and yes, to just a business plan and a working model. I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars with just those two things. Now, the second part of the question you're asking is, say that again, Lex.
Oh, I just, if you're kind of like overwhelmed by all this and you're looking to see what kind of grant money is available in your area or your type of business, what's the first thing you should do?
Type Google grants and start looking it up. I worked with Sherry Watson, who wrote The Power of Grant Money. Sherry Watson became crippled in a quad accident and learned that the world wasn't handicap friendly, and actually got on Washington and got the ADA Act passed, the American Disabilities Act. This is a home mom with kids that became handicapped, that changed the entire country because she was able to communicate the passion. Well, she also wrote this book called The Power of Grant Money, and in it, it's a wonderful textbook on every aspect of what it takes to write all kinds of different grants, because they come from so many different agencies and avenues. You'd be surprised how many there are that are for special interests or groups or segments of society. So depending on your special interest or group or segment society, start with that in Google and then ask for the grants. And there's a laundry list there. My pursuits and many of my friends have been scientific and scientific ventures. And but I was going to use that as a lead into SBIR, but I don't want to pre-qualify it as saying it's just for scientific ventures. What SBIR is, Small Business Innovation and Research Grants. What this is every division of the government, every department of the government, all 11, 13, I forget the number. Point is, they put out solicitations every quarter, Department of Education, Transportation, Defense, Energy, and they all have funds and they're looking for solutions, and they would love it for inventors to come up with those solutions and help the government and help society. And so it's a fantastic program. The SBIR program offers these solicitations. It's sbir.gov is the website. You look up the industry or the vertical that you're in, and you can find the solicitations that are being announced every quarter, and you can review them and see topics that might be something that is absolutely right up your alley. And oftentimes, if not, you'll find things of interest. Now, there is another approach where you can approach them and say, I have this new thing I'm doing, and you find an ombudsman and you work with them to where it actually turns into a solicitation that was almost in fact designed for you. But it still is, there is a strategy and procedure for this. So your SBIRs are solicitations, they're announced, you fill out the form, and the levels of financing are great because it's non-dilutive money. These are grants. Again, it's not equity, it's a grant. So you get these grants. I think the first level is 75,000. It's to do a proof of concept. Next level, level 2, I believe, is double that. And these levels have changed over the years, so I might be aging myself here. But it used to be about 75,000 on the first level, 150 on the second, and there is even a third level of funding from SBIRs, which is to help with fully commercializing it, which is also usually subsidized and supported with by then VC money, because it has in fact shown it's working and is ready to really explode in the market. So the SBIRs, the hardest part though is that a lot of the other groups I work with, health, IHS, other government agencies, they have grants available, but to come up with all the paperwork and show you've got the team all squared away and certified, and you've got the plans and the budgets and the schedules and all the connections and all the research has been vetted, it is quite a commitment. With one of the grants I tried once with one of my medical device companies, I had a team of about 6 people do 8 weeks of work. It was 12 banker boxes of material to submit to the government for funding we were going after, and in the end didn't get it. So there's the other, the problem with grants is they do take quite a long time. It's not a get money quick issue. It's usually 3 to 6 months before you'll see where it's gone full circle and they've selected the winners. So don't look at it as a quick way to get the grant money. But
Good point. Good point.
If you're an individual, how can you get somebody to help you write those grants?
all right, so I think you're aiming at we have partnered up with OmniSync. OmniSync created a group called Turbo SBIR, and I again connected them. I was a advisor through Launch Factory, and this Turbo SBIR was one of their startups. They started the company under the premise that grant funding is difficult, but they had the experts in doing that. They had the formula for it and the grant writers with PhDs and the knowledge. What they'll do is for a very professional field, they will actually write the grant for you. But for a much easier entry fee of around $100 a month, they will coach you through the writing of it using their very professional, seasoned writers. And then they'll also do a version of it where they'll do it all and they take a percentage of the grant on the back end. And that is a phenomenal game changer. That's a different play than I've ever seen before. So many other firms were quite willing to, for tens of thousands, to supply you the expertise. So they are one source. Another source, there are professional grant writers that make their services available on Fiverr. And another one of the groups that we do support and work, because I did help create it, is Productified. And Productified is a platform, it's virtual, and it's a great set of tools for people to create project schedules and plans and teams. It's also a great way to learn about how to use Fiverr very effectively to find any kind of support person you're looking for, perhaps including a grant writer. So there are a couple of ways that you can find the support. But just to get a little more familiar, just go to sbir.gov, look into whatever area of interest that you have in the government, whether it's science or flight or defense or energy or transportation or chemistry or food or whatever. They all have solicitations. And yes, Department of Defense, of course, has got the most solicitations out there, but they got the biggest budgets. So if you can devise that next super amazing photon beam weapon, they got the numbers for you to apply. Call now.
The real lightsaber, as you said, real one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, you read those topics, it's mind blowing when you see, oh my gosh, this is the stuff we're really working on.
Yeah.
You worried about a few things you hear about in the news. Wait till you read where we're really at technology wise by reading what these solicitations are. We're like 4 miles ahead of anything you actually see published in the news. If it was published in the news, it was actually obsolete 3 years ago. So
Adrian, is there a way on SBIR.gov to search for grants not based on a solution but that's needed, but instead based on who you are? So no, it's just all. So
it's not that I know of. I don't know
what
of
would
any
you
way.
recommend if someone, because I know that some grants are offered based on where you live or based on the makeup
Yes.
of your company, if you're
Yes.
a woman owned or minority owned, or if you maybe based in not just on the solution, but a particular industry that your product serves. So where does somebody go to search for that type of grant?
You're absolutely correct, Lexa. There are women's groups that support women. Yes, there are animals groups that only support. You're absolutely right. So depending on that vertical and interest group, put that in Google and start with them before you type in grants. And often that's probably your quickest way to find those. I will, whenever I find an opportunity that's a new grant, I try to post it in our newsletters. And during our meetings, we do a resources and opportunities section near the end. And again, if I know of a grants available, I'll announce it. I'm particular, again, to the Department of Energy grants, because if you're doing something renewable energy, that's where you find all these cool things from wave to solar to anything in between. That's the most fun to me reading. And once in a while I'm going, I thought of this idea and maybe it's time, they're finally asking for it. So you have to match make yourself to the solicitation. The criteria of oftentimes having a team behind you, that is actually, I found daunting because I don't have a degree in every subject that I thought would be interesting, and actually worked in areas that really all I did is a Crash 101 course and thought of something unique. But I found out I couldn't get funded for it until I actually had somebody that really was knowledgeable, experienced, support me as an advisor and so on. So same is true when you're doing one of these SBIR grants. Oftentimes you do have to show you've got somebody with some knowledge or experience, or maybe a title or a degree behind their names. But that's a matter of networking and connecting and getting people to get in your boat.
So if you have like a gadget or a kind of more of a commercial product, probably GoFundMe with this special kind of inventor program that GoFundMe is just launched is the way to go.
Well, it's going to be one of the simpler ways. Yes. Again, when our meeting, I have a number of slides at the end, including, and they're called finance, they're opportunities and resources. And I forget how many there are now because there are so many. They are growing, and they do have, again, you are right, different criteria that they're looking for. I'm especially passionate for the ones that are co-space groups that are helping women inventors, minority inventors. The USPTO has a program, and Warren actually is part of this. They want to double the number of inventors in the US by supporting minority, veteran, and women inventors. And that's a fantastic opportunity, and I support that through our newsletter, as well as where the links are to get all of that information. So, it's some homework, and it's creating laundry lists, and self-filtering to find out the ones you're most qualified for because of your, whatever it's demographics or whatever criteria there are. Some are just much more general and federal, and they're statewide and aren't in any most anyways really segregated. Others are very specialized, and you have to meet a bunch of criteria. So
yeah, maybe the way to go is just to, you said that the SBA is sort of the hub, and then there's spokes like the junior colleges and the other community. Maybe those people would be the people to ask. They probably have their finger on the pulse as far as what kind of regional grants are available, or what kind of, so maybe people here in Boston or the Boston area would get in touch with their local SBA.
Or Economic Business Development Council. It's rather common title. Most cities have an Economic Business Development Council or a Business Development Council or something along those lines. And they're the ones that they've been relegated the chore of creating new business and helping inspire new business and making those connections. Here in town, it was Sergio Aparicio. He was one of the organizers for 1 Million Cups. I met him, found out he was the city Economic Development Counselor. And yes, we had some meetings, and right there in a little cafe by the street, he was bringing down people that were the key people in town to connect to right away for either the grants or getting the connections to the universities. We have 3 parts of our state: upstate, Midlands, and the coastal region. And upstate is actually the very high-tech sector with most of the high-tech companies and so on. So they've got an ecosystem up there, and the Columbia here in the capital, they were able to unite us to all the ecosystems. So we have a South Carolina regional authority that helps connect investors to startups. There's the Economic Development Council is a who's who. We also tend to have a business opportunity center. It's again another information center. I'll share the name after we finish here, but other cities have them as well. They are agencies within the city government, and their whole purpose is just to connect you to all the resources that are in town, whether it's community colleges or financial groups or any other resources, SCORE, any other counseling areas.
Yeah, I'm going to put a link to the one. It's the Massachusetts Economic Development Council.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the website right there for anyone interested. So,
Adrian, as I
George.
expected, and when we talked before, just kind of rock star stuff for everybody that's still, that has been, like you said, number 1 or 2 is where's the gold? Where's the gold? The gold is in the information. There's a lot of helpful information, a lot of good information, a lot of fair information. But certainly being able to now have a pool of resources that, 20 years ago, it wasn't out there. 10 years ago, some of it wasn't out there. And I suspect that it'll just keep evolving in the future because of the need that a lot of people from the pandemic, you and I have talked about this before, more people were home. They decided to dust off that idea off the shelf, or something they were working on before didn't have time for it, and now want to get back in the game that maybe they can pursue something that maybe one day turns into maybe a small profitable business or a licensing agreement. So I urge everybody listening out there, certainly now with the magic of Zoom, us all being able to attend different meetings around the country of now it'll be certified inventor organizations. The information's out there. The information's out there. It's, you look harder, it's definitely accessible to get to people now. Lex, can you think of anything else? Thank you for bringing up about we got talking with the GoFundMe week, a very important part with the SBIR stuff.
yeah, Bob Weber has a question, and another Bob, two Bob questions. Bob Weber, I had the impression that besides the small initial SBIR, if one could show progress,
Yeah.
there are 2 additional SBIR grants of increasing size. Thoughts?
Yes, we are phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. That's the 75 for just first proof of concept. Second phase is further development, and third phase is full commercialization. And third phase usually requires you have a co-investor, but second phase is a full-on debt equity-free, just pure out straight grant as well. So you're absolutely right. There are 3 levels: phase 1, 2, and 3. You have to complete phase 1 before you can apply for the phase 2, of course, and same with phase 3.
Then Bob asks, is filing for a provisional patent? Oh, wait, I should ask Bob Weber if that answered his question. Well, if I don't hear otherwise, I'm going to assume it did. Yes? Okay, cool. Bob asks, is filing for a provisional patent worth applying for as a strategy to keep bad actors at bay at launch time, even if you know you would be unable to be granted a full patent and have no intention of applying for a full patent?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Call their bluff. You got to keep them at bay. It's patent pending. They don't know what you filed. They don't know what's in that patent. If in fact, you don't think it has any merit, look, it still gives you a year to get the idea out there and see if you can get some legs and get it going. Besides, you might find there's ways to amend the patent later on and follow it up with another filing. So unfortunately, though, because it's first to file, that is the way to do it. When we had the ability to keep notebooks and have people witness it and go back later saying, hey, I invented it then, that was a method to do it a little lower cost. But now it's first inventor to file. And unfortunately, again, I coach so many inventors and they've become very leery actually even of talking about their ideas anymore if they haven't filed. It was to the point where people would refuse to even talk to me unless I signed their NDA. And when I see how worthless the NDA was, they get upset with me because it wasn't going to stand anywhere anyway. First to file means somebody could tell you your idea stinks. You walk out the door, they walk over to the computer, and $65 later, they own that idea. So it kind of behooves you to be the first to actually file because that's how simple it is to get ripped off at that earliest stage.
Very good, there. We're gonna bring, Lex, I hope I do this right. I want to bring everybody back.
Yeah, everyone just turn your video and
Yeah, video, everybody come on back. Or not show.
right.
Adrian, we're gonna ask anybody else before we go here. I hope that you found it very informative. I know I did, learned a lot from Adrian. He's been around the ship for quite some time, so he's a lot of experience with the good, the bad, and the difficult of our business. So, but when Lex and I have been working with Adrian for a while with this certified inventor organizations, we all were talking about the same thing, and it came down to funding and what type of funding is available for creators. That's what it's all about. So Adrian's has identified many different ones that weren't out there that long ago. So we are going to continue this conversation in the future, maybe towards the end of the year, to see what other new things are happening, and some more information is going to be forthcoming about the certified inventor organizations. Lexa did send out to everybody in the groups and through Meetup the information about SBIR that Adrian's a part of, Lexa, myself, starting on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday of this week.
Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday.
Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's why Lexa does admin, Adrian. I told you that for dates.
You saw how messed up I got today. I thought Saturday was Sunday. I mean, well,
I know. But yes, look it up. It's a lot of great information. Lexa's put out the code. Lexa, I saw in the.
Yeah, it's England. If you go to that link that I put in the chat and just use the code when it's asked, I think it says, the link says like have a promo code or something like that. Put in England 01 and you'll see that automatically 50% is taken off. And it ends up being, I think, like, I want to say it's like $25 for the 3 days.
yeah.
Which is like ridiculously, it's a great bargain. So, and that's for 3 full days. And there's close to 60 different industry experts speaking.
And all the funds go to a good cause.
Yep.
Right, exactly. Adrian, in closing, one last thing for everybody. top of your list with what we're all do and participate in and going forward. Best practices, right from the beginning, best practices when it comes to, getting the right partners, finding the right organizations. I know you've been a big proponent and certainly of the certified inventor organizations. And then the information is out there. The information is out there for funding, for partnerships, for alliances. And I really want to appreciate your time. But anything in closing, you want everybody to know?
I'd be delighted to share more. If you go to our website, the South Carolina Inventors Forum.org, you'll see the year schedule. And again, those are the 11 different aspects that we've identified as usually the most important topics to talk about. So for each one of those, we bring in a speaker, either locally or nationally. And again, these are all free, and you're welcome to join us on those as well. And we hope you do, and you pursue your ideas, and let's get this economy and country back on its feet. And that's by inspiring inventors and entrepreneurs to pursue their dreams and do more than just try to go for a license. Try to build a business. This is the land of the free, the home of the brave. But the greatest ride and adventure is being the entrepreneur that gets to experience the whole depth and breadth of the rewards of what happens when you build an idea and bring it to the market and help and benefit society. So come and join that ride.
Great
Adrian.
advice, Adrian. Great advice. Thank you very much. Anybody else got anything in closing? I want to thank everybody for their time. It's good to see some new faces and some old friends. Antonio up there. I know Shirley's still with us, but anybody has any questions at all? Lexa, you can put out our emails if everybody has to get in touch with us for anything. Certainly follow up. And I think that's it. I thank everybody for coming. Adrian, I still can't. I'm going to tape my fingers together one night so I can do that in closing because
Super glue goes a long way.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody. Alexa just put our information up there if you need to get in touch with us. Certainly, I encourage you to visit your local inventor group, your certified. Lexa has a map on the UIA, UIAUSA.org.
There it is.
There you go. There's Adrian's logo. Find a group in your area. It's on the map. And you'll notice the designation because we'll have the nice gold shield that says Certified Inventor Organization in your area. And like I said, hopefully by this time next year, we'll have well over 100 organizations around the country that are speaking the same way, teaching people that need help and keeping them on the right path. So
thank you very much for having me. Thanks everybody for joining this evening. Anybody want to reach out and contact me for any other further questions or advice? You can reach me at adrian@inventingwithadrian.com.
Lexa's going to put that in the chat right now. Lexa, thank you very much. The creator of the Cargo Caddy and certainly certainly the engine in Invent New England here, which soon will be New England Invents as we transition into our 501c3 and to pick up the mission certainly in this fall and certainly starting in the new year. So I look forward. Everybody stay safe, please. Lexa, thank you for a great night.
Yep,
Adrian?
thank you. Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, George. Thanks, everybody,
you.
for coming.
Okay, everyone. Take care. Thank you. Antonio, take care of yourself.